In 1974, during the Nixon administration, there was a major shift in federal low-income housing policy that placed a greater emphasis on private sector involvement and movement away from traditional public housing. So to assure that low-income people in need of housing would still be served, housing advocate Cushing Dolbear organized the first national coalition on the basis of the interest of low-income tenants rather than on the health of the housing industry. This ad hoc coalition, formed in 1974, was formally incorporated in 1978. Dolbear also assembled a second group called the National Low-Income Housing Information Service to provide data on housing problems and federal housing programs, and to provide technical assistance and support to state and local housing advocates. In 1996, the two organizations were merged, forming the National Low-Income Housing Coalition. We have three simple goals. We want to preserve existing federally assisted homes and housing resources. We want to expand the supply of low-income housing, and we want to establish housing stability as the primary purpose of low-income housing policy. And we work to achieve these goals through three basic objectives. The first is to change public opinion. We want to intervene so that we can improve the public's understanding of low-income housing needs and solutions, how current federal policy impacts this, and what these needs do to their communities. Our second objective is to increase the capacity of low-income housing advocates. We want to intervene with our members to help them be more successful in educating their policymakers about the issues that we're concerned about and holding them accountable for making good decisions. And our last objective is to basically cause federal policymakers to take action that solves the shortage of housing for the lowest income Americans. It's important to know that we don't represent any segment of the housing industry. Instead, we work with and on behalf of people who need affordable homes. So our focus is on the housing needs of the very poor, including people who are homeless. Many consider us to be the conscience of the affordable housing industry in Washington, D.C. Our work is informed by a wide and diverse spectrum of members: nonprofit housing providers, homeless service providers, fair housing groups, state and local housing coalition, public housing agencies, private developers and property managers, research, government agencies, faith-based organizations, tenant organizations, and public and assisted housing residents themselves. We are strictly nonpartisan, and we do not seek or accept public funding. This allows us to retain complete impartiality in our policy analysis and integrity in our policy recommendations. We are funded entirely by private donations and grants and by the dues that our members pay. We organize our work into four program areas: public education, research, outreach, and policy advocacy. We are known for the quality and accessibility of our research. It is geared to making data available and useful to people who are working at the state and local level. We are also known for taking on tough issues like federal tax reform. We enjoy the respect of policymakers on both sides of the aisle, and we bring a broad base of support to bear on the policies that we advance. We stay strictly mission-focused, and we do not get sidetracked by the issues du jour. First, we value the opinions of our members, and periodically we survey them about services and publications. We also have an ongoing internal process of monitoring our progress and measuring our work against financial and programmatic objectives. Based on this evaluation, we can adjust our activities accordingly. Our board members regularly meet to discuss and evaluate the impact of our work. They provide feedback and suggest refinements in strategy. And then the staff members will revise our work plan as needed based on the board direction and any new developments in federal policy. It's important to understand that we don't develop or operate housing directly. but we really value the engagement with low-income people who are most affected by federal housing policy. Our bylaws require that at least 25% of our board members be low-income people themselves, and further, low-income people can join us with dues of just $3 a year, although the cost of member services really far exceeds that. We also have a highly reduced rate for low-income members to be able to attend our annual conference, which is made possible by donations that offset the cost of the conference. We have led the campaign to establish the National Housing Trust Fund since 2000. Enacted in 2008, the National Housing Trust Fund is the first federal legislation to support production of rental housing that's affordable for extremely low-income households since 1974. Once fully funded, it will provide communities with new funds to build, preserve, rehab, and operate rental homes that the lowest income families can afford. We also led the campaign to pass the Protecting Tenants in Foreclosure Act in 2009, which protects tenants from imminent eviction when their landlords lose their properties to foreclosure. The highly partisan political climate in Washington right now, exacerbated by the federal budget debate, makes it challenging to protect existing federal housing resources and to advance our proposals for new investments in low-income housing. Also, the housing industry is a very powerful lobby in Washington, D.C., and it doesn't always share or support our efforts on behalf of the lowest income people, largely because it's not profitable to build housing that they can afford. With increased capacity, we could take on additional research projects and develop new tools to better equip our network of advocates. We have a wealth of expertise and we engage in a lot of forward thinking, but we have many more ideas than we're able to implement. So increased resources would enable us to develop the best of these and allow us to provide greater assistance to our state and local partners. We have not wavered in our mission to work for and with extremely low-income households. However, we could and should be doing more research, advocacy, and outreach that focuses on subsets of this population. That includes veterans and single-parent households and women.